The coronavirus pandemic has collapsed the global economy, and no one knows just how much worse it might get. The world of sports, of course, hasn't been spared. That includes college sports. There were no NCAA men's and women's basketball tournaments this spring. Far and away the biggest moneymakers for the organization itself. But even college basketball is dwarfed as an industry by college football. And no one can say at this point whether there will be games this year.
This is college football.
LSU Tigers going to war!
The passion.
These fans really believe in this team.
The rivalries.
You can win them all and then not win this game and you feel like it's a disappointment.
The tradition. The cold, hard cash. College football is the engine that powers college athletics. So what happens if there's no college football this fall or early next year? Combined, the 65 schools in the Power 5 conferences stand to lose more than $4 billion. Even if the games take place, but without fans in the stands, those schools will still lose at least $1.4 billion combined in lost ticket revenue. A lost season of football will probably mean the elimination of some non-revenue generating teams. In fact, it's already happening outside the Power 5.
Central Michigan announced it is discontinuing its track and field program.
Not a whole lot going on here on the campus of the University of Cincinnati. Here at the soccer stadium, it'll stay that way from now on.
No college football? For the fans, it would be hard. For athletic departments, it would be devastating.
And for more, we're joined now by Paul Finebaum, host of the Paul Finebaum Show on ESPN Radio and the SEC Network. Paul, your professional life centers around college football. What do you think is the likelihood we're going to see it this fall?
Jeremy, I believe we are going to see it, and that is not my personal opinion. It's based on talking to countless people, from commissioners to athletic directors to football coaches. There is this quest, this impossible dream to get it. And when a couple weeks ago it seemed like maybe it had gone away, the resolve became even more pronounced. And even though there's still 3 months to go before the first weekend, right now I think we're going to get there.
Even if students in general are not on campus, are you talking about just college football essentially then in the fall?
Now, Jeremy, I'll try not to be too cynical in this conversation, but that was originally discussed a few weeks ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, and everyone from Jack Swarbrick at Notre Dame to commissioners said, no, we can't have that. And then they started to change the wording of that description, that some hybrid model, maybe some students on campus, maybe not a full campus. And right now, I don't know where they are, and I don't think they know where they are. In the end, they'll get athletes on campus. I hate to use the word student athletes if we don't have anybody else, but ultimately they'll find a way to get some students on campus. I don't think you'll see a full campus. Some of them may be in labs. Some of them may be taking courses online in variations. But they know they have to reach a certain threshold, or otherwise the critics and the commentators will just simply paint a picture that this is no longer intercollegiate athletics, it's professional athleticism. And I don't think they'll be stuck with that. They'll be tagged with that, so they'll figure out some way.
Paul, when they talk about this, and as you said, you talk to everybody in the industry, in college sports, especially football, where does safety for the student athletes, for the football players, rank as a priority when they're having these discussions?
Well, it's always the first thing they mention, but Jeremy, you do have to wonder sometimes, because they seem like they are in a rush to get this thing off and running. But you know, the responsible commissioners that I speak with, the responsible ADs, and there are many out there, talk about safety. But even when they talk about it, I'm not sure they really know what they're talking about. And I don't mean to be demeaning them. They spent the last 2.5 to 3 months every day on Zoom meetings talking about these very topics. So they're conversant on the subject, but it's one thing to talk about it in theory, it's another thing to execute it. And even more delicately, what happens if they get a positive test or even worse, an outbreak?
Are we talking about a situation perhaps where some schools, let's just talk about the 64, 65 Power 5 schools. Some schools say we're going to be okay with this, and some schools say we're not?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always reluctant to quote Darwin on sports programs, but I think this is going to be the survival of the fittest. The best programs, the biggest, the Alabamas, the Southern Cals, the Notre Dames, the Ohio States, are going to be able to deal with this much better than the second and third tier because those smaller schools don't have the money. This is going to be very expensive, and I still have not heard anyone explain how they are going to do that. I talked to an athletic director the other day at Missouri, Jim Sturck, who said it will cost about $60 or $65 a test. He said, but we're not going to test everyone. We will test those who are symptomatic. And I'm not trying to give a thesis here on epidemiology, but we all know by now from just going up and down the cable dial that asymptomatic cases are fairly dangerous. So it's still confusing. It's still a very vexing situation, but that hasn't stopped the quest to get to opening weekend.
Nobody better connected in the world of college sports than Paul Finebaum. Paul, thank you for joining us. And for more, you can find a deeply reported dive on this issue by Paula Levine and Mark Schleybaugh. It's been posted on ESPN.com.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.